The Mueller probe goes out with a whimper, but the Democrat House member probe comes in with a bang, the bang of a gavel, that is. I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, we are reading these days in Axios that House Democrats have sat down with some reporters in a little roundtable and mapped out their strategy for what they plan to be a massive assault on President Donald Trump's past, his records, possibility of money laundering, the stuff that Mueller missed in the Russia probe, and much more. There are at least 3 Democrat-run House committees right now that are already investigating. They plan dramatic hearings. Who knows where this is going to lead? So, Bill, I just want to get your initial reaction. You knew it was coming, but what's your initial reaction to the Democrats looking at the failure of the Mueller probe and the failure of the Senate committee after interviewing 200 witnesses to turn up any collusion between Trump and Russia, and still saying we're going to do a full court press on President Trump?
Well, I think the Democrats are right on the money, because obviously the problem with the Mueller probe was that he didn't have enough time.
Or money.
Or money. And God knows what many, hundreds of things probably he missed in the 2.5 years, and millions of dollars he spent in order to turn up the fact that there was nothing there, and that the whole thing was manufactured out of whole cloth by Democrats and people in the FBI like James Comey and Strzok and all the rest of it. So please, by all means, please be sure to double down on this, because unless you can show me felonious activity while he was president of the United States, I'm really not too interested. Felonious activity prior to, I'd pay attention to, but I just have this sneaking suspicion. And Scotty, sometimes being a pundit, you got to go way out on a limb here, and that's what I'm about to do, and risk my reputation and all that I hold dear. But I would be willing to wager that after the level of interest and peeling back the layers of the onions to the point where there are no onions left to peel, I don't really suspect that Maxine Waters is going to turn up anything.
Well, Bill, methinks I can almost hear the sound of a Republican minority leader, or whatever they call them in the House when they lose their power, wandering around the castle and saying, "What can men do against such reckless hate?" What do you think the Republicans are going to do about this?
Wow, what an awesome question. Anytime we go to Lord of the Rings, it elevates the tone of the answer for sure. Well, I think what you can do against such reckless hate is what you do against reckless hate, and that's charge right into the middle of it and wait for Gandalf to arrive with the cavalry. And in this case, Gandalf would be the American people. By all means, push your green agenda and do everything you can to discredit Donald Trump. And I guess we've been saying this for well over a year now, almost 2, Scott. It's like, what are they really trying to do? Are they going to turn up something where we find out that Donald Trump was indiscreet in his personal dealings? Well, if that were the case, certainly I would withdraw my full support for the guy in a heartbeat, as anybody would. What are they trying to do? The guy is beginning to really look like, in some ways, Obama had this in the mirror image, where you couldn't touch him because even though there was nothing there, the nothing was very urbane. And obviously, if you didn't like President Obama's policies, that made you a racist. But with Trump, it's the evidence of these ongoing attacks in the face of zero evidence. In fact, this is an important distinction. It's not just that there's zero evidence. If Mueller has done this probe for 2.5 years and spent that kind of money, there is anti-evidence. So what I mean by that is zero evidence means that, well, maybe he did something, maybe he didn't. We haven't turned anything up yet. But when you do this kind of investigation and find nothing, that's evidence of absence. Not
evidence
just absence
to the
of
contrary,
evidence.
basically, you're saying.
It's not just absence of evidence. It's evidence of absence. There's nothing there. There's no there, and they know it. So please continue their bankrupt policies of. Here's what the Democrats are going to have to offer in 2020. Donald Trump is a bad guy, and he says bad things. And yes, the economy is growing at 4.5%. And yes, everybody has more jobs. And yes, businesses are succeeding where they weren't before. And sure, you have more money to take home to feed your family and other ridiculous things like that. Yeah, sure. Okay. Fair enough. We'll grant you that. And ISIS isn't a factor anymore. North Korea's basically given up their nuclear program. Not sending money to the mullahs anymore. There's 2 conservative Supreme Court justices and very likely a third once they discover where Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been encased in her carbonite block. And And so, yeah, run against that. And when you run against that, be sure that the only criticisms you have is that the guy is occasionally known to make a vulgar comment. And when you present your platform, make sure that your platform is nothing but Donald Trump's a nice guy. And please, please, please be sure to include the Green New Deal, which I keep wanting to say Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has basically staked out now. She's put a marker down that says that this is the position of the Democratic Party. So please, you know what's going to happen, Scott? We talked about this briefly last time. I don't know if it was on the air or not. But this election in 2020, the way it's shaping up, is going to be a referendum to the American people on whether they want bacon or kale.
Let's just say that that the Democrats not only hear everything you said, but agree with it. So you say, what can be their strategy here? Well, perhaps their strategy, Bill, is that they understand one Donald Trump so well that they realize that they need to generate about 20 months worth of distraction, things that he will not be able to resist tweeting about, things that will get under his skin, even though they know they're not going to find anything worth impeaching him over or even slapping his wrist over. But it provides for them a platform that is going to be covered nonstop in the media and the constant distraction of the president, who has all these accomplishments and may be drawn off his main focus.
Well, we already know that the president has a fair amount of time to himself to think about things. It's not like they're going to knock his busy schedule out the window. He's, as we did on the previous episode, he's made a lot of time to actually get things done, apparently.
Unstructured executive time you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm talking about. So I'll give some advice to the Democrats, and I can do this with the full confidence that they won't take it, only because it's a historical reference, and they're so poorly educated, it won't mean anything to them. So I might as well just say it in Greek, which is the language it was originally written in. One of Hercules' challenges was to fight a warrior named Aeneas. And Aeneas, like Hercules, was a demigod. Hercules had a god for one parent, and so did Aeneas. Aeneas's mother was the earth goddess. And so Hercules was wrestling with Aeneas. Hercules, the strongest man ever. And he would pick up Aeneas and he'd throw him to the ground, the way he'd throw anybody else to the ground to knock him out cold and finish the fight. And every time he came in contact with the ground, Aeneas got more strength because the ground represented the earth, and that was his mother. So finally Hercules figured this out and killed him by holding him up in the air and strangling him to death without his feet being able to touch the ground so that he could draw strength. This is the only way that I can imagine that you would actually be able to beat Donald Trump, and that is simply to stop throwing him to the ground, because every time you throw him to the ground, he gets stronger. The best way, if it were up to me, the best way that I would deal with Donald Trump is to essentially ignore him. I would ignore him as much as possible. They've tried for 2 years this whole thing about this whole strategy of, well, when people find out what he's really like, well, when people find out what he's really like, they're going to vote for him. They're going to vote for him not because they like his erudition, and they're not going to vote for him because they like his elegance. They're going to vote for him because he's against this idea that people in Washington know what's better for me than I do. And so I would deprive him of oxygen. I don't know if there's any other way to beat the guy, but they are far too stupid, and far too emotionally engaged in the short-term win to be thinking anything long-term. So again, once it seems like, every third episode is here's the Democrats with some new plan to destroy Donald Trump. And when I hear one that I think is going to be successful, I'll let you know.
Now, Bill, by the same token, shouldn't the president and the whole executive office essentially try to starve these Democrat committees and their hearings of oxygen by basically coming out with a statement that says, of course, the president welcomes any scrutiny of his past behavior, knowing that he is above reproach, so the Democrats should feel free to wear themselves out in this task?
Issuing a statement that says the president welcomes these investigations because they know that his past is above reproach is a Mitt Romney press release. A Donald Trump press release is these bastards are trying to hunt me down again, but they're not going to do it because there's nothing to hunt for. Just call it what it is. It's a witch hunt. He's right. He's right. Many of the things that he said during the campaign season of 2016, I thought were perhaps dubious. Let's just give it that moniker. But he was right about all of it. He was right about the witch hunt. He was right about have his phones being tapped. He was right about the manufacturing evidence. He was right about the weaponization of the government, especially the FBI. He was right about all this stuff. He was right about a plot from the deep state to make sure that he wasn't president. It all sounded fantastic. It's all true. So again, the more they try to slam this guy to the ground, the stronger he gets. Now, conversely, strangely enough, I would, as I said, I would say, hey, if you want to continue this witch hunt and spend tens and tens of millions of dollars of money that could be going to people who need benefits, that's your decision. I'm not in the House of Representatives. I don't write the appropriations bills, but I do know there are people that could use the money more than Maxine Waters so that she can have a press conference. That kind of thing Donald Trump should do. But I think in terms of his bigger strategy, he needs to do almost the opposite of ignoring the Democrats. The Democrats, if they were smart, they'd ignore him and let him, give him enough rope to hang himself with. Trump's big opportunity now is to continue with the charm offensive that swung a significant, in national elections, 5% is a significant swing. Drove people to see a side of Donald Trump they hadn't seen before, a more presidential side, a more magnanimous side, which I predicted prior to the State of the Union address, and for which I took a few comments right in the neck. But it got him a lot of percentage points in terms of popularity. And while those things I don't think necessarily last for another 2 years, I do think that the lessons of them last. And the question will be whether he's smart enough to learn those lessons. He's certainly smart enough to learn the lessons, no question about that. Will he be disciplined enough to be able to maintain that attitude? And that's exactly what I would do. I would be Mr. Nice Guy, want the best for the country. We all want a better government. Everybody wants a better government. That's what I sent us to here for. Let's get to work for the American people. And when these probes and all these other things and all these other, condemnations and censure and all this other resolutions and all of this nonsense, I would then just simply say, I really honestly don't know why this witch hunt is continuing. I knew I never did anything wrong, but I can see why people would want to know. But after 2.5 years of an investigation and stuff, it seems like a waste of time and money to me. But I don't control the House of Representatives, so they have their constitutionally limited power, and they can do whatever they want with it.
Well, while more Democrat hearings may not be good for the country, we do appreciate the hearing you give us here 5 days a week at Bill Whittle Now. We know that's made possible only by the people who are funding this effort, the members who've gone to BillWhittle.com and clicked that Become a Member link. If you'd like to join them today, you can do that by doing what I just said that they did. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.